So when I first started telling D&D stories, a lot of the questions that I got near the beginning was, what is this? How do I play it? What am I supposed to do? How do I get started? And these were questions that I kind of took for granted when I first started doing stuff on this channel. I've been playing D&D for so long, it didn't even occur to me that others may not know what the heck I'm talking about or even what kind of game we're playing. When I first started telling these stories, a lot of people thought I was playing some kind of weird eccentric video game, and no, this is a completely different thing. So, these next set of videos, D&D for Dummies, is meant to target those who have no idea what D&D is and wouldn't even begin to know how to approach it. So, let's go ahead and get started. D&D for Dummies. What is D&D? The best summary I have ever come up with in my life for explaining to new people what D&D is as such. D&D is a collective daydream collaborated together by a group of friends. Essentially speaking, you can do whatever you want because the game takes place within your collective imaginations. Now, there are rules to this collective daydream. That's why they have books, that's why they have dice. The rules are there in order to establish what kind of actions that people can take at any given point and what kind of reactions can be taken by other players. The dice are simply there to determine on a scale of usually 1 to 20 on how successful something is. Depending on what kind of character you're playing, you might be more successful at something than some others. We'll talk about classes and race later, but let's say this nimble halfling thief is trying to get through this door. Now, if they tried to break it down using force, they can roll a 1 to 20 just like everyone else, but they're probably not going to be that good at it. But this nimble halfling thief might be able to use their thief tools in order to better get past the door by picking the lock. That would be a much better approach for them. Contrastingly, let's say a big dumb orc who wants to get past the same door has some thieves tools. There's a good chance they're not going to be able to use them that well, and they might do better at breaking down the door. Now, the rules not only determine what each character is good at and what each character is bad at, but there's one other person at the table who also determines how difficult that door is to get past. That character is the DM or GM, otherwise known as Dungeon Master or Game Master. The Dungeon Master or Game Master is a unique player at the table who is in charge of the story, the encounters, and everything else at the table. Let's say, for example, there's 5 people sitting at this table. When it comes to this, 4 of these people are going to be considered players, or player characters. They'll be playing one person. The last person sitting at this table is the GM or the Dungeon Master. Their job is to direct the 4 other players through an adventure using a bunch of narrative tools. Now, the GM is in charge of telling a story. Typically, they'll guide the players through a game, and they'll have a bunch of hooks and other types of narrative things in order to guide them through, but that's kind of a lesson for another time. And that's the shortest breakdown I could ever give you into D&D. It is a collective imagination game held by a couple of different individuals, usually between 5 players. One of those players is a unique character called the GM, and they're in charge of the story. The players then try to beat the GM's challenges and get through it. Now, the GM has the ability to make the challenges harder or easier on the players depending on how they see. The GM is not meant to be against the players. The GM is meant to be the guiding hand in order to get them through the story. The GM really wants the players to win. It's not meant to be a versus game. And that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next week for another episode of D&D for Dummies, and I'll catch you next time.